So, guys, I do want to talk about What Culture, and I briefly watched their video about AEW and the low ratings. And you know, I have no problem with Simon Miller and all the other people at What Culture, but I will say that there are plenty of people that make excuses for All Elite Wrestling, and I know like one time I was mad with Simon Miller because a few weeks ago he was saying something like, you know what, I don't care what they do, I'll just watch because I like it, and if they keep doing things that are controversial, I'll still watch. And that's kind of dumb advice because that encourages AEW just to make alienating programming. And then also people were talking about like hockey and the election, other things like that. And yes, that takes away from an audience. But I really want to dissect why AEW got a bunch of bad numbers last night. Pardon me, I may have the hiccups. The thing about it is that the number one reason is that they did not care. Because number one, whenever they have to move their show, they need to kind of say, okay, what night of the week are we on? If we're on a Tuesday, we are then competing with WWE NXT. If we are being moved to a Friday, we are competing with Friday Night SmackDown. If we are being booked on a Monday, we're competing with Monday Night Raw. Every single time we are booked on those nights, we have to go all out, really. We have to have a really great, excellent show. We have to have a banger. And we also have to say, okay, well, this show was like advertised for 3 or 4 weeks. They knew that they're going to Spokane for 3 or 4 weeks, really. So this had to feel like, a banger of a go-home show. And honestly didn't feel like that. It felt like you took random wrestlers that may or may not have matches at Wrestle Dream, and then you gave the matches. Like, honestly, you gave Mercedes Moné and Emi Sakura a match, and that's an example of AEW going in the wrong direction. And then also, it's like what I said, you need to create cliffhangers, you need to create nail biters and other things like that, and also do something, just off the chain, really. And they really didn't have that. So I really think the big thing is that they didn't really care. The next thing is that sometimes, and as I said, I think one of the other things too is like this over reliance on special shows. You had 3 special shows in a row. You had Grand Slam, you had the anniversary show, then you have Title Tuesday. So Grand Slam, the reason why that got good in the ratings, the reason why you filled, like, you got 8,000 people to be at the Arthur Ashe Arena, which is actually good. It's 8,000 people is a good draw, but a 50% full arena is not that good. So the reason why you got 8,000 people at Arthur Ashe Stadium, a good draw, is because, people know year after year, Grand Slam was like a pay-per-view level show. You had great matches, and you have a lot of intrigue. And then when you had Title Tuesday, when you had the anniversary show, you had not that many matches announced that people wanted to see. I think the only match that you had that was announced that people wanted to see was Ospreay versus Ricochet, and then again, there was some controversy with that match. People call Ospreay and Ricochet gymnastics, and then the other issue is that you've had Will Ospreay do hour-long bouts and other things like that. So people are getting some Will Ospreay fatigue. When you have a wrestler like Will Ospreay do all that stuff, really, if he's overexposed, you actually create a situation where people don't want to see him because they're going to say, okay, and you're just like John, instead of John Cena's 5 moves of doom, it's Will Ospreay in his 50 minutes of doom, type of thing, really. So you have to kind of understand what people are saying. And then all the other matches, there's no other match that I found that was memorable on that card. And before I go to the other thing, actually I would even say you had 4 shows. You had Grand Slam Dynamite, Grand Slam Collision, which was supposed to be like a part 2 of your Grand Slam. So that's 2 shows, and then you had your anniversary show, that's number 3, and then you had the Title Tuesday show, and you had a horrible Title Tuesday. Like, you only had 1 title that was on the line, really. You had Emi Sakura versus Mercedes Moné, and as I said before, who the fuck is Emi Sakura? You might as well have brought in a Taiwanese wrestler or a Russian wrestler, or you might as well flew somebody from Antarctica who's into professional wrestling, because again, nobody knows who Emi Sakura is. You didn't even have any video packages advertising who she is. Like, you're not saying, I would rather have you have a match with Awesome Kong. At least people know who that is. You don't do something like you have an esoteric Japanese wrestler on your show. You had your main event, which was stupid. You had a tag team match. And you're saying, okay, it's going to be the three people that are holding the trios title and Bryan Danielson. That's a Title Tuesday match because everybody's holding titles. That's not what Title Tuesday match is. When you say Title Tuesday, people look at it as either a battle of the belts or a Night of Champions where all the titles are on the line. So, what would have happened if you had actually the three of them have a trios match against, like Top Flight, and then you had Bryan Danielson on commentary, and then whatever happens. If Wheeler turns heel or whatever. You also had a number one contendership match, and it changed. I understand shit happens. Maybe Britt Baker got injured. I can understand that. And you had a fatal four-way that wasn't that bad, really. Nyla Rose does a great job on ROH, and she's formidable. And then you also put in Paige, which you need to make Paige a big deal because obviously people who've watched WWE know who she is, really. So I'm okay with what they did. But quite honestly, the only bad part of the match is that you had Jamie Hayter be stupid and chase somebody to the backstage area. So it makes Jamie Hayter look stupid. But usually when you think of a Title Tuesday match, you don't think of a number one contendership. But I will give you a pass because obviously Willow versus Britt, that's what people want to see. And then also, too, I don't mind a Title Tuesday match. At least you have 1 or 2 matches that are not for titles. And if it's a number one contender, I can kind of be okay with that. And then you had I believe Jay White in a squash match. Well, it took him 5 minutes to beat a jobber, really, which was stupid. It should have been, one finisher, then you're done, really. And then you should have said, okay, between Adam Page and me, I just came back from the company. I'm a former champion. I want to go to Full Gear, and I actually want to win the title this time, unlike what happened last year. If you had them, you got Jay White talk about that, and then you have Adam Page, talk a little bit on the microphone back, really, then you could have set up Adam Page versus Jay White, false count anywhere match, because they just had a false count anywhere type of thing last week when they were fighting all over the place. And in addition to that, the winner will face the champion at Full Gear. You could have set all that stuff up. You did something stupid with Mark Briscoe. How many times have I said that Mark Briscoe has a hell of a voice and you are so stupid that you don't have that motherfucker in the ring with Chris Jericho giving a promo? That would have been fire. That would have been something to advertise on the show, really. There are a lot of people who like Daniel Garcia. Why don't you advertise him for the show? Daniel Garcia is somebody that people like. You want to have him actually be part of AEW for a couple of years. Wouldn't it make sense to advertise, him for the show, really? I think, you have a lot of things going on at Wrestle Dream. You could have easily said Swerve and Bobby Lashley, or Swerve and the Hate. I'm not sure, they're not like the Hurt, not the Hurt Group or the Hurt Business, the Hurt Business or the Hurt Faction or whatever. Let's say if you said, okay, we're going to actually have Swerve speak, and then you actually have Bobby Lashley appear. That would have been good. You're going to save that possibly for Wrestle Dream, but that would have been good. Or you could have done something you could have done a tease okay, John Moxley has a new member of his faction. You show a silhouette of Shane McMahon, and then you actually have, somebody on the roster that is not Shane McMahon. It could be Christian, or it could be somebody else, really, that to add into their group, really. Somebody who's a heel on the group, heel on the roster, and you add that to their faction, really. That could have been a good bait and switch, really. So I just think that the big thing is that they didn't really care, and the next thing is that they didn't understand the Title Tuesday concept. And it's as I've said before that there were things that are advertised for the show that should have been on the show. And then I think the other thing that I will say is that ultimately, as I said, they don't understand what Title Tuesday stipulation is. It's supposed to be Night of Champions. That's what most people would think, but they didn't do that. And then also, too, They advertised this wrong. Really, I would not have had. I would have easily had. The way I would have done this is this. I would have said, we're going to have Title Tuesday, and we're going to do this. It's going to be Top Flight versus Top Flight versus the Blackpool Combat Club, and Brian Danielson is going to be on commentary, or he's going to be the special guest referee. That's going to be what I'll do for the main event. And then I would have had an announcement that Daniel Garcia is going to talk about his future with AEW. Then I would have said Mercedes Moné, she's going to be facing Athena. I would not have Emi Sakura. I would just say, I would just do Athena. You guys would have a pay-per-view level quality match, really. And then I would just advertise, Ospreay is going to confront the Don Callis family. And then I would have also advertised Chris Jericho and Chris Jericho and Mark Briscoe. I would say it's going to be a bubbly and redneck showdown, type of thing, really. A nice suit and a redneck showdown type of thing. I would just make something cute with it. I would have also advertised, I think, on the show. I also would put on the show. I would have actually had a match between the Private Party, and I would have done something where Private Party and FTR have a match, with each other, and this is just to really use Private Party as have them have a pay-per-view level quality match type of thing, really. And I would also say that maybe during the match you could have the Young Bucks attack them and just mess it up for them because they're about to get a major victory. And that's probably all I would have done, really, But there would have been other matches as well. I just think that. And then I would also have Swerve Strickland. I would have Swerve Strickland, and then I would have a silhouette of, who's it going to be, really. You can have a silhouette of Shane McMahon, a silhouette of Lashley, a silhouette of a few people in the Hurt Business. And then I would have Lashley on the show, really, That's what I would do. I would do all those things because, then you kind of are taking something from Wrestle Dream and you're putting it on this show. But I would also do something I would not make it a Title Tuesday. You can say, we're going to have, a kick-ass go-home show. We're going to call it the kick-ass go-home show, and that's all we're going to do. We're going to start the Full Gear. We're going to start the Wrestle Dream pay-per-view tonight. You're going to see pay-per-view quality matches. We're going to have some titles on the line. We're also going to, we're going to we're going to hype up some matches. We're going to have people, and all shit's going to, I don't know how it's going to break loose tonight, really, type of thing, really. And I would have made a 3-hour show, so some of the people that I'm featuring have time to talk and all that, really. And that's what I would have done. And then I would create some intrigue. But as I said, people won't have that special show fatigue because, Tuesday shouldn't have not been a special show because you already had 4 of them in a row. And you count AEW, Grand Slam, Collision. But ultimately, AEW has to understand that every single night they have to care. Every single night they have to have that A game. This is almost like Gordon Ramsay coming down to a restaurant or John Taffer coming down to a restaurant. You cannot afford to be lazy. Thanksgiving is going to be a very important day because they have their Thanksgiving Day show on that Wednesday. So what are they going to do? Are they going to say, okay, well, everybody wants to... Yeah, they had Full Gear that weekend, so people are just going to be more concerned about seeing their families. No, that Wednesday show has to be fire. So they have to keep on doing that. Whenever you have a show that's on a difficult night, that gets switched. And if it's on a night where you're competing with WWE, you have to make it a strong show. Because at least if you're not drawing a good size audience, the thing that you're going to get is at least people are going to say, at least AEW gave a fuck. Or, man, we should have watched that. And I really don't get that feel and stuff like that. So I just think the big thing is that they didn't care. I think that they had a hodgepodge of matches. And I also think that the next big issue I'm going to say is a lack of a intertwining story. If you're going to have 3 or 4 shows that are all special, you have to have multiple storylines. The only storyline that you had was really, where is Wheeler Yuta? Where is Will Ospreay? And where's the Don Callis family and all this? Those are the three storylines: the Don Callis family, Will Ospreay, and also Wheeler Yuta and the Blackpool Combat Club and the Moxley faction. So it's not like a majority of people really, so. I just think that you have to kind of really do that. You're gonna have to take like 5 things that are compelling, and you're gonna have to do like a week after week storyline type of thing really, and you got to have these wrestlers participate on every show. So it's a really important reminder of like what they need to do. And my prayer for next year is that, number one, they don't have Grand Slam. Like, they have AEW 5th anniversary show at Arthur Ashe, AEW anniversary show at Arthur Ashe Stadium. That's what they need to do. Grand Slam could be your February pay-per-view. And that's what you do. Or you say like AEW Grand Slam anniversary show. And that's what you do. AEW Grand Slam anniversary show. And you have it the first week of October. That's what you do. You don't do like 2 weeks of special shows, because then you're going to run into that pattern of making special show after special show. And then you get a diminishing return because people are going to say, how's it special when it happens all the time? And then the next part of that is, what's the next part of that? The next part of that is that when you do that, then you're going to have to make a match card for Grand Slam, a match card for Grand Slam Collision, a match card for the anniversary show, a match card for the Title Tuesday show, and a match card for Wrestle Dream. So you have to think about like, at least up to like, over 40 matches you got to make. And you got to make sure they're all interwoven, and then you got to also make sure that that it kind of like leads to something bigger and better every single time. And yes, you can do that. It takes maybe it may take a week and stuff, and you got to just keep that standard. And I think with Tony Khan, the reason why I think people don't like Tony Khan anymore is because he doesn't really have a standard. Like, he kind of comes off as people say, like a rich spoiled baby, and then when things happen that are struggles for him, he's just going to throw money at a problem, and he's not going to persevere. He's going to be like, it is what it is, or he spreads himself too thin, that he doesn't have a sense of shame, really. He doesn't have a sense of, we failed and we're going to learn from our failures, So I really think that that's one of the reasons why people are turned off from him, is that he doesn't have a sense of learning from failures. He has a sense of a privileged boy. Oh, it is what it is. We're going to move on to the next thing. And then he has a bunch of stupid choices. Like the thing about turning AEW into a weekly show with and saying that the creative's just going to work on the show weekly. We're not going to think about long-term storytelling, when that was really one of their philosophies, is stupid. And then also the other thing too is that you have 30 people that are working on the storytelling element. That's way too many people. And the way you would do that is that you divide them up. 10 people work on Ring of Honor, 10 people work on Collision, 10 people work on Dynamite. And that's the way you do that, because you have way too many people. And then you take people who have like really good ideas, and you're like, okay, well, I'm giving you a storyline, and like I'm gonna give you like, Jake the Snake and the 3 luchadors. So obviously, where do I want these wrestlers to be in like 6 months? Do I want them to hold the trios title? Do I want them to be a heel faction? Do I want them to do this or that? Really make a story that gets them to where I want them to be in 6 months from now. And then if they do a good storyline and it does good, they keep that person. And if they do a bad thing, then they're like, okay, that's strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, get out. We got to find somebody new, really. And that's how you really do it. And then people who are not doing so well, you may say, okay, well, 2 of you guys, you're not doing so well. You guys are going to take, something we don't really care about. We're going to take the pure title, and we're going to, you guys are going to make a story with that. We want this guy to be a champion for a year, but we're going to give you 3 months to work with this guy and make a story for him. And if it doesn't, and if it stinks, and people will say it sucks, both of you guys are out of there. That's showbiz, kid. And you keep on doing that, keep recycling people. But when you have like so many writers, and and it all, and yeah, if you have so many writers and then one person just picking and choosing, what's good, and it becomes a huge clusterfuck. And then if you say, okay, the priorities on making a weekly show, not a long-term story, then that's not good. And just remember that in professional wrestling, that's how it works. It's the long-term story. And the other things that, yes, there's injuries, there's people quitting, there's people saying, I don't want to do this or that really. But that's when you have to be creative and take the idea and then tweak it a little, or tell some people, you know what, if you don't want to go down the storyline, we're firing you, because we're not going to have people not have good ideas. Like, I think the whole thing with Ricky Starks, great example. With Ricky Starks, yeah, he could be a baby face, but if he works better as a heel, then I would say something like, okay, well, Ring of Honor, we don't have a lot of wrestlers that are so hot there, so we need to put Ricky Starks in Ring of Honor. He needs to be like feuding with Mark Briscoe over the title, and I think that'll be good for him, because obviously he can be a heel, but he can like draw money to the Ring of Honor crowd. If Ricky Starks says no, then I'm gonna be like, no, then we have too many heels on AEW, Dynamite, and Collision. You do what I say, or pack your bags, type of thing, really, So there also has to be some gusto with that, But I think that they're doing a lot of things wrong in AEW. It's not surprising to anybody why they got low viewership, and honestly, shame on them. They really have to act like a big deal, and that's really, really important to the company.